All right, folks, we're live. Greetings and welcome to Obscuria Filmcast, where we discuss cult and obscure films. Today, we're going to continue our discussion on the film "I'm Thinking of Ending Things," written and directed by Charlie Kaufman, and this was suggested by Judy. We're going to just do a part two here because I feel like we ended somewhat abruptly, and this is just like a really strange and dense film with a lot of stuff going on. So I just thought we could get a few more final remarks in before we actually, put the lid on this one. So, Judy, Seth, any
We didn't
particular
get to talk
thoughts?
about the pig with maggots and how it and maggots in general, and maggots in horror, I guess, and maggots in
Yeah, and the pig
people's
theme.
lives. I know.
The pig theme starts early on in the road trip where there's a billboard with a pig on it. Correct? That's at one point, I think.
I think so.
And then it's sort of there in the beginning, the middle, and the end. So in the middle, the seemingly imaginary characters that make up most of the body of the film are visiting the young man's parents, and they go to the farm. Before they actually enter the house and meet the parents, they're in like a pigsty, and one of the pigs is dead and infested with maggots, and it's a very strange, tense, emotional scene in the film.
Well, I
Yeah,
don't
it's a memory
he
of the.
wasn't there, right? He's telling it's like a black mark.
It's amazing how you can create, especially with a film like this, how many false memories you can create.
Yeah, they don't see
Yeah,
the pig in when he's telling the story in the barn. There's just a black spot, and he points to it, and he says, "This is where the pigs were," and he tells the story.
right. That's
And
right.
I'm not sure if 100% correct, but he tells the story about how his dad didn't feel like walking into the barn, so he just threw the food in. He
Yeah.
threw I forget what you call it. He just threw it in for a couple of days. And then he started to notice that the pigs weren't really moving. And so he came in and discovered that, I guess when they tried to stand up or something, that they were being eaten alive by maggots. And then he doesn't finish, but he sort of alludes to, like, I don't know, they killed them, I guess, or they died. And then the pig comes back at the end as an animation with maggots, or stuff dripping out of him.
Yeah.
As he's walking behind him naked.
Yeah, as he's basically
So-
taking the nearly like the dying, the main characters in the process of dying, taking him on the journey to witness his last, grand exit, which is in the form of the musical performance,
Yeah.
projection, I guess.
And he makes a comment to the pig about something about the maggots, how we all end up getting eaten by maggots
Yeah.
in the end anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
So thoughts, Seth?
well, I have a maggot eaten by maggots story, just of my own, that I wanted to share.
Okay.
Which was, rather traumatic, because he remembers this traumatic memory of these pigs that were wintering. And I was at a summer camp, and there was a rabbit. I was telling after the show last week, Abram, the story of a rabbit that was eaten alive by maggots.
Yeah.
In our summer camp. And it was the same thing. It must have gotten some kind of wound, and I guess we weren't cleaning the cage properly, or the camp counselors weren't cleaning the cage, and it got maggots, and they took it to the vet, but there was nothing they could do, and it had to be euthanized. But everyone at this that I'm still in contact with, the summer camp, who remembers that, is like it's like in your brain.
Yeah.
Forever.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny, because this is also, as I told Abram, the summer camp where there was the incident with Mr. Jiggs, the performing chimpanzee who performed for the Grateful Dead, and he attacked a magician in front of the entire camp, and almost 10 of us out of hundreds remember that incident. And my sister, who was there, doesn't remember Mr. Jiggs attacking the magician. And a lot of our parents don't remember us coming home and telling, but it was the 70s, and I guess all our parents were on Valium or something. Just that crazy camp we send our kids to. But yeah, I mean, in terms of this movie, it's amazing what you remember. And don't remember, and what's traumatic and what isn't traumatic. And also what's interesting about his final performance after he comes out of the car naked, being led by the animated pig, which is dripping, is they get him dressed, they put him on stage, he becomes the younger guy, he's in like old age stage makeup, the audience is in old age stage makeup watching him, and I think he gets younger as he's on stage, and then he performs something which is very much like Oklahoma, or at least on the set of an
I think
Oklahoma.
it might have been Oklahoma
I
itself.
think
No,
I don't
or
know if
it was
it's
an
Oklahoma
original.
itself. I'd have to let me look in the
Okay.
in the musical credits. But he says that's his favorite musical, and then I was thinking
He says that
during-
earlier in the
In the-
projection of himself into the younger version.
and I
earlier in
think
the
that
film.
all the musicals he lists are really old musicals that like an old
Mostly
guy would
yeah.
have said that he liked. They're not like, there's no like recent musicals like Rent
I think the
listed.
school also did those musicals.
The
Like,
schools
lots of
also, yeah,
kids
schools would also
practice
do
in the
that.
hallway.
So, and it reminded me of how like when you did a school show in high school, you would end up at the diner with like old age makeup all over your face at the local diner, because they grade your hair and put that crazy aging makeup on. I'm looking for musical credits in IMDb, but I'm not seeing them. I mean, it sounds a lot like an Oklahoma song.
Yeah, and is the speech that he gives about winning the award, is that the same speech that was in A Beautiful Mind? Or
Ooh, good question. I don't know.
I think we'd have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure I recall that speech is an actual speech.
Which he does win for physics in A Beautiful Mind, so that would make sense.
Yeah, I believe it's from that movie.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it's one of those things where remember from, what is it, Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion, where she had the dream and she was like, and I knew the formula for glue in my dream, where it's like you can have these fantasies of you doing something that someone else had done. These are the things that he wanted to do. He wanted to be on the stage in the young male part. He wanted to win an award for physics, right? Physics.
Yeah.
All the things that he's probably thought about over and over and over again, and he's seeing himself. That's why I just think it's a real. I was, the second time I saw it, I just felt sad for him. I was like, this is just such a warning in a way, not a warning, but like the unlived life, the life that he lived mostly in his head, which gets really distorted the more you replay it and replay it and replay it. It's like, then you don't even know, well, what was the name? Where was I? How old were my parents then? Because it's another part of this, is his parents like leave the room and come in younger, fantastically played by the actors.
Yeah.
He just can't really remember it accurately anymore.
Yeah. That is, yes, that is Rodgers and Hammerstein, Many a New Day. So it's
okay.
Yeah. And Wouldn't It Be Lovely is performed by David Thewlis, who plays his father, is Lerner and Lowe. So those are both old musical songs. And Lonely Room, which he performs, Many a New Day is performed by Hadley Robinson. Lonely Room is performed by him at the end, and that is Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein. Mm-hmm. So all the music, except for the Tulsi Town song, which was written by Charlie Kaufman, is Lerner and Lowe or Rodgers and Hammerstein.
So it's kind of like a lot of these. I think it's kind of. I was looking at an article a minute ago, and it's basically like Charlie Kaufman was saying he didn't want this to be like one of those movies where it's like, well, and the whole thing was all a dream. Mm-hmm. Like whether it's a dream or whether it's his memories or whatever. I mean, it seems to be like a lot more layered than that. It deals more with memory than specifically with a dream, I think. And, but one of the qualities that make it somewhat dream-like, at least in one of the types of dream interpretations, that says that every character in the dream is sort of you, or can be looked at as a part of you. I think that seems to be like a very, like, I think you can make that case in this film. There's not a whole ton of characters. Obviously, your parents, on some level, they're kind of like a part of you. And the pig is on some level probably like a reflection of him. And so it was the most traumatic event of his life, perhaps. And it's a icon that welcomes us in the beginning of the film. You see in the middle of the film what the event was that, like, really, I mean, that you never see him more upset than in that scene, or like more just kind of like not wanting to deal with it. And that might be a symbol of his neglect or feeling neglected, because the pig is clearly being neglected, and that's ends up happening to the pig. And then it's the neglected pig at the very end of the film who says, "Hey, man, it's all right. Like, I may have had it worse than anybody, but it all ends up in the same place at the end. And hey, let's go enjoy the show. One last
Yeah,
show." And I'm trying to find a way that the film, I can't put my finger on precisely why I feel this way, but the film feels incredibly sad, as Judy said, especially after kind of going through it again. It just feels like really, really sad, but somehow it doesn't feel bleak, and I don't know why. Like, it should feel more hopeless and depressed. It's not a depressing film, really. To me, I don't know. Maybe other people would find it super depressing. It's just like a really sad thing. Like, you really feel terrible for this character who didn't seem to have a fulfilling life, I guess. I don't know.
But then I wonder if he
But
did
then maybe he did.
in a way.
What's
Like,
that?
maybe he was living mostly in his mind, from what I gathered from the film. Like, he painted, he studied things, he read a lot of books. So I don't think he was sitting around like feeling sorry for himself. He just probably had some like social anxiety, and probably there's some mental disorders with it. Like, you think of people who watch TV and then think those people are like part of their world, and they become stalkers and obsessive. Like, he never went that far.
Yeah.
Like, he met a woman at a bar and then created this rich fantasy life with her. Like, he wasn't doing anything like per se like really wrong or terrible. He just like couldn't get out of his shell, but that doesn't necessarily mean that like his whole life was awful or he hated himself. Like, I didn't get that from it. It just got like, it was, for me as the viewer, I felt sad for him, but I don't know if like, I'm not sure, I guess, how sad he was.
Yeah, he might not have been a sad. That's the thing. That's part of the reason why I guess it's sad as the viewer, like, as you say, but maybe the film didn't feel as bleak, because it sort of has this uplifting vibe to it in a way. He's just it's kind of like, there's nothing in the film that said it should have been another way. It seems to just be like, it's almost like if this was a real person, this would be a way of showing the richness of their life with dignity. The film treats the main character with dignity and with respect. And I guess if there was a man who nobody ever really knew much about him, and nobody really understood any of the things that he went through. He kept everything to himself. He didn't have much of a social life, and he lived and then he died. And I guess that man, if I were to tell the story of that man, I'd want to do it with as much dignity as Charlie Kaufman did in this film.
So the thing that I don't think we discussed last week that I discussed with my husband and couldn't quite figure out is when he goes with her to visit Tulsi Town. There's two girls at the beginning in what looks like stage makeup, right? And they just keep staring at him. They're not really working. They're just sort of like, they're kind of being a little bit mean to him in a way by being nice, extra nice to him, sort of, or her actually. But I think they're staring at him, and he won't get out of the car.
That's not the first time you see those girls in the film.
No, and I think
I don't know if you remember. They're certainly in the end, but they're also early on in the film when the janitor is kind of like cleaning the theater area. There's those two girls are rehearsing and kind of staring at him like he's a freak.
Yeah. Okay.
So now they're like it's almost like those girls. Well, the way I take that is that those girls they represent the types of girls that were always cruel to him as a young man, that would never give him the time of day, and that probably made fun of him and looked at him like he was a freak. And they reflect the same girls as an old man that still in the school are like, who is this creepy old man?
Yeah.
Or at least that's the way he thinks they're looking at him. And so I think it's just another, it's just that's kind of the recurring theme throughout the film. And if you watch the film again from the beginning, I think within the first 15 or 20 minutes, you'll catch that scene.
Yeah.
And then the other girl, the kind of nerdy, like girl with issues, I think you see her also in different little, she doesn't have any speaking roles with the janitor, but I think also you see her at some point. I don't remember exactly where. And she maybe represents like the sort of nerdy, nice girl that probably would have given him the time of day, but he just never, whatever.
Well, so she has the same, like, she has the same, I don't know, skin condition or something on her hands.
Yeah.
Same as.
I see this. He has something on his hands. So when she passes the ice cream, and this is what I couldn't figure out, she says something about like, to elude like a danger. There's like a sense of danger. She's like, the smell is not the varnish or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, does that go back to the pig of like, I'm just thinking of that now. Like, did he?
No, that was a puzzling one to me.
I don't know. That's what that was probably the biggest part that I was like, what is she alluding to? Because it did take a turn there. You're like,
that's where I thought it was going to, that's the moment where I thought, okay, now this film's finally going to get scary, and there's going to be.
That's what I thought too. I thought this is where it becomes a horror movie.
Yeah, and that never happened, which makes sense because it's a Kaufman film, and he's not notorious for doing that. I think a third and a fourth viewing, I might be able to pick up on what that's all about. But I had the same thing. I didn't get it the first time for sure, and but I think there's probably a good explanation.
I think that's my favorite part of the film, though, is when
it's the most incredible shot, and like it's just so well done.
But there's something really spooky about going to those summer little ice cream places when they're closed down or should be closed down in the winter.
Yeah,
in little towns anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
When you're on like a road in upstate New York or Pennsylvania or something. And I always thought, remember when I was at the Pennsylvania Ren Fair, I took a girl out on a date and we wanted extra malt in our malt. And that was like, they didn't have a rule for that. And it was like asking them to do like advanced particle physics. And I was like, just charge me every time you put another spoonful of malt, because I want extra malt in my malted. And they're like, oh yeah, I guess we could do. Can we do that? Can we? But it's the same. It's like those places are like always been weird to me. Those, it's like they're these shacks and they're kind of barely standing, and it looks like it's snowing, and it looks like it might not be heated.
Yeah, every small town has one. At least. Yeah. No, it's interesting. Also, there were some other little details, like just little things with the shots that I didn't notice the first time around. Like do you guys remember the moment in the film where he suggests to put on some music? That's where the first, I think that's where the cut is between, like he suggests putting on some music and she says, sure. And then the camera cuts to his hand going towards the tape machine and the volume knob, and it's not his hand, and it's very quick. It's the old man's hand, and it's the interior of the pickup truck, not his car. And then I think from there, maybe it cuts back to them in the car, but then shortly thereafter, that's where it cuts to him as the janitor in the theater, and that's where you first see those two twin girls. In that early scene when the first conversation starts about him and the musical theater stuff. And he's like, oh, I wouldn't say I'm a big fan of musical theater. Like, I don't know. And then he starts rattling on. He's like, I like Oklahoma and Guys and Dolls and Black. And then he just lists like 30 musicals. And it's like, okay, you don't like musicals, whatever, bro. But Those little details, like I didn't notice that the first time that he's leaning in to put the tape or change the volume on the radio, and it's not his hand, it's like the old man's hand in the pickup truck, and then it's like nobody's gonna notice that. Not nobody, but it's going to be very hard for people to notice that the first time, which begs the question, is this one of those movies that he designed to be like a film that people are going to want to go back to and see over and over again? And I think probably yes. What do you guys think?
I'm enjoying watching it over and over again.
No, but I'm saying, don't you think that he wanted to make the film so that people would want to come back to it?
I think, I think like any good film, you can, there's a certain type of person that can enjoy it and never see it again, and then there's a certain type of person that can get more.
But there's nobody that can watch this film from beginning to end and get it the first time. Like I want to watch. There's a lot of films I want to watch over and over again just because they're badass and I want to see them again.
Yeah.
And maybe there's certain technical things I want to learn from it, but it's not like the first time I see it, I didn't get the story.
Well.
And like David Lynch is like that, you know.
If you watch Hereditary, you can enjoy it once.
Hereditary.
Hereditary. You could, yeah. If you watch it once, you can enjoy it. If you watch it twice and look for things, or are told to look for things, it's a very different film. There are little things in there that you cannot see, but you can walk away enjoying it and never going back to it. This one, I think he probably wants you to watch it multiple times.
Yeah. It's kind of like a Where's Waldo type of phenomenon too with films like this. You know, it's like, what do I have to look at? I got to find the thing, the pattern, It's like once you find all the Waldos, you got to go back and find all the other extra characters that you didn't know about in the thing.
Yeah. It's The Speech from a Beautiful Mind. I'm just skimming.
It is Beautiful Mind. Yeah, I was just about to say that.
What's The Speech from a Beautiful Mind?
If you look in trivia on IMDb, the final speech is from Beautiful Mind, because one of the films in Jake's childhood bedroom is A Beautiful Mind, and the ending of this film resembles the ending of that film, as the main character accepts a Nobel Prize, and some of the speech is quoted directly from the film. In both films, the characters wear old age makeup. In this scene, deliberately fake-looking makeup in this case.
Yeah. That's pretty clever.
Who
wrote A Beautiful Mind?
I don't know who wrote A Beautiful Mind. But
that's plagiarism.
I don't know that it's plagiarism because it's only partially. And it's a tribute, right? It's not.
Yeah.
It's not like the current case going on with Ed Sheeran and the Marvin Gaye family.
Wait, Ed Sheeran ripped off a Marvin Gaye song?
He says he didn't, but I was watching Entertainment Tonight, and I was like, "Destroy the hell!" Seems like he even was in one of his concerts, and he broke from playing his song and went into "Let's Get It On," which the prosecuting attorney showed.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
that doesn't bode well for him.
It doesn't bode well. But it's funny. It's like Ed Sheeran's gone to court now 4 times. For
stuff like that.
He's won a couple times, and I think I think he's won twice. And I think he won in court, settled twice, and now this is the third second time.
Here's a message to all the songwriters out there who want to plagiarize and get away with it. Write more interesting songs. If you actually add a few more chords to your song and maybe change the melody, like you can actually do more, and you can steal like 1,000 things and glom it together. And nobody will ever know.
His defense was there just aren't enough chords. That's what his defense.
No, but that's his That's the problem with all these songwriters. They only write 3-chord songs. Like, learn a few more chord changes, and you won't have that problem.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think you can. I think you're allowed to parody, and I think you're allowed to tribute.
Yeah, sure.
And
also, if depending on the artist, they'll actually be, they would never even dream of, I mean, it depends who owns the rights or whatever, but a lot of the times the writer direct will be like, it's a badge of honor that somebody would do something like that, And in jazz, that was considered that was done all the time in jazz and improvisation. And it was considered like really like an honorary tribute to do that.
Yeah.
I don't think Stravinsky would have ever considered suing Charlie Parker for quoting Petrushka in one of his jazz solos. He just probably couldn't believe that he did it.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it works with you film people.
I don't know.
But
There's also one other Easter egg I wanted to mention.
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah.
And it's also in an article for IndieWire, and I'm sure all over other internet articles. But it's about this book by Pauline, I'm going to say Kael, Kael.
Oh, yeah, this is interesting. Yeah.
So she wrote an essay from a book called A Supposedly Fun Thing I'll Never Do Again. Wait. Sorry. I'm reading the wrong thing. Okay. So basically, they keep referencing, she says word for word in a monologue about an essay that she wrote about women under the influence.
Right. Which is, I watched this and I was like, wow, that's a really strong critique of John Cassavetes.
Yeah.
That's like so bold to go after Cassavetes.
Right.
But evidently it's Pauline Kael's review word for word.
Oh, was it?
Here's what Kaufman said. Kaufman quoted.
That is so funny.
He says, debating the film and its Gina Rowland's performance, Lucy basically transforms into Kael. Sorry if I'm saying it wrong. Repeating the review verbatim with her spot-on impersonation. And then in quote, Kaufman says, I've always liked her and grew up with her and reading her and thinking that she was smarter than I am, said Kaufman, echoing the sentiment of many readers over the years.
Yeah, Pauline Kael is one of the most iconic film critics in the history of film criticism.
A little trivia about Pauline Kael is she didn't like Star Wars, and
that's no surprise.
And when Willow came out, the bad guy, the general, the Darth Vader character, is named General Kael after Pauline Kael because of the amount of.
Was that in the sequel?
It's in Willow.
In Willow.
In Willow, the bad guy is named General Kael because of the pain and suffering that Pauline Kael brought down on George Lucas's life because she was so important to the 70s.
Yeah. Well, it didn't hurt the film too much.
It didn't hurt the film or anything, but I mean, she was very important to that generation.
Yeah, but that's the type of thing. Like, she's notorious for being like the one dissenting person on when there's a film that has critical consensus, she'll be likely to be the one to come out of the woodwork and say, no, I don't think so. This was a terrible film.
Yeah.
Here's why. Where's her movie? No, I'm kidding.
Where's her movie? I'm going to go over the actresses who were considered for the part of the young woman. Brie Larson was replaced because she got the role of Captain Marvel, and that was just too much money to say. And she was replaced by Jessie Buckley. But considered were Lindsay Lohan.
That would have been interesting.
Kristen Stewart.
Okay.
Joanna de Verona, who I don't know. Ali Willow and Anne Hathaway.
Okay.
Which means they were, that doesn't even mean the ones that auditioned or were considered in just like, these are like ones that actually like got to IMDb being listed. And and also the pig is animated because Charlie Kaufman wanted to use a real pig. But then he was informed that pigs can't walk on wet floors or turn their heads. So his team from a previous movie created the animated pig using Photoshop and After Effects.
Nice.
Yeah.
And it worked.
It works.
It made the film, it made that scene even more eerie.
Well, it makes it more like the Tulsi Town song too.
Yeah.
Which is animated. So it
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think and obviously it's because she did it, but I really can't picture any of those other actresses doing what Jessie Buckley did in this film.
Yeah.
It was just, she was stole the show in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I think with some of the other actresses like Kristen Stewart and Anne Hathaway, you get to a point where you're like, oh, I'm watching Kristen Stewart.
Exactly.
Yeah, you want someone who's kind of unknown.
Yeah.
So you don't know what's going to happen to them.
Yeah. It's, Toni Collette, I recognize right away, but she's always fun to watch.
She's always doing crazy shit like that.
Yeah. And so it's fine but I think for this movie, especially, I liked not really knowing who the lead was.
Yeah. And also we should note that this guy whose novel this is based off of, and of course I just lost my IMDb page. He's got another movie that he produced that he co-wrote that did pretty well too. that's out now.
Interesting.
Of course, I can't. I got to get my IMDb.
I think I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna go and read this book.
You're gonna read the. He says
Yeah.
it's just. He says on IMDb that he really feels that it's just another way of looking at his novel. That Charlie Kaufman really did it justice, and he is credited as co-writer.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So he liked the film. He thought that it was faithful to the.
Well, he says it's another. What it says. So in some, and I don't have the page open right now. I'm looking for it, but he says it's another way of interpreting his novel. So he's not saying, he's not coming at it like Stephen King comes at Kubrick's The Shining, like that. It's just not my novel. He's definitely happy with it.
Yeah,
or in agreement with it.
Has Stephen King been happy with any film adaptations of his books?
Yeah, he's happy with. He's very happy with The Mist, and that goes in a different direction. And he's happy with the new ending on which
Pet
is
Sematary?
alternate of Pet Cemetery,
Yeah.
which totally goes in a completely different direction, and he liked it.
Okay.
So yeah, he's not always unhappy, but overall he feels that he's warm and Kubrick's cold, and so he had a problem right from the beginning.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that, though.
Yeah, I'd agree with it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine any writer being happy with what Kubrick does. I mean, like Kubrick's doing his own thing. I mean,
Yeah.
Eyes Wide Shut was based on a novel, I believe, right?
I don't know.
And there were a few other ones of his.
Yeah.
But Kubrick very clearly is like trying to tell his own story in that movie. That has nothing
He
to
has
do
a style
with
and a tone.
What's that?
He has a style and a tone to his films. And I think Stephen King, it's got a different tone to it. I don't know how to explain it. It has a bit more absurdity, I would say, to it. Like almost, I don't want to say mocking the horror, but there's a little bit more levity to it.
Stephen King's book.
To Stephen King's books, or not even just because he likes this director Mick Garris, who I interviewed once a long time ago. Lovely man, but he directed a few of Stephen King's films that they were just shot differently. They had I felt a little bit more of like a quirky sense of humor to it that Kubrick does not. There's like no humor in Kubrick, or it's a very dark humor, I should say. It's not
it's
upbeat at all.
My kind of humor.
Yeah, and so I just felt like when I looked at the Stephen King movies directed by Mick Garris, they had a bit more of that. It just had a different quality to it, and I know Stephen King liked that, at least back in the
Did John Carpenter ever do a Stephen King novel?
John Carpenter did Christine.
Oh, he did?
And he did... Christine is John Carpenter, right? I'm
pretty
sure
no idea. Off the top of my head.
All right, I think it is. I'm willing to put down at least $50 on that, people.
Okay.
Hold on, let me. All right, the guy I'm talking about is Ian Reid, and his second novel is called Foe, and it's a sci-fi thriller, and it was directed by Gareth Davis to the screen, and it stars Saoirse Ronan.
And this author, he's relatively young, right?
He's young, yeah.
He didn't do his first novel until he was like close to 40, I think.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
But he's obviously got one of those book deals where it's he gets a screen deal at the same time as his book, which is most book deals now, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Film options. Christine was directed by am I right? Directed by John Carpenter. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know how much more we have on this. I think the 35 minutes for a part 2 is pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty
Do you guys
nice.
have any other thoughts? We already told you in the last one to go and watch this film if you haven't already.
Yeah.
So we'll tell you again. This is, if we're going to do part 2 on this film, obviously we think it's a worthwhile film. So go on and watch it.
Watch it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a different experience to watch it twice.
Thanks, Judy. And I think we talked to Dan about, I really want to do Margin Call next.
Okay.
And
right.
Neither of you have seen that, right?
No.
Okay, cool. So we'll see if Dan wants to surface this week and chime in on that. But hopefully the next film we're going to do is Margin Call.
Margin Call.
And that's a 2011 film written and directed by J.C. Chander. I think it was his first film, and I don't think he's done that many films since. It's a really kind of interesting debut film. It's got a stellar cast in it. Kevin Spacey, Paul Bettany, Jeremy Irons, Zachary Quinto, Penn Badgley, Simon Baker, Mary McDowell, Demi Moore, and Stanley Tucci. So it's quite the lineup. It's a financial thriller. And in my opinion, the best one ever made. So if you like Wall Street and The Big Short and I don't know what else to compare it to, you know, films like that, you'll really like this one. Anyway, that's all, folks. Until next time, everybody, peace.